Hi, welcome back to Biotech. Then here, one more important topic we are going to study, that mechanism of respiration. See here, mechanism of respiration. How mechanism of respiration means how we are able to respire, or inhalation and exhalation, how they take place in our body. So that we are going to study in the mechanism of respiration. Generally, lungs are the major respiratory organs in our body. So these lungs are located inside the body, so we cannot see them. Directly we cannot see them, but we can feel their power of action. How the lungs are performing their action, we can feel them. How, suppose example, when we visit the doctor, sometimes when he wanted to test us, see, he will take the stethoscope and he wanted to test the sometimes our breathing rate. He says us, usually he used to say as take a deep breath, so, and leave the gas. So like this, during the taking, breathe in and breathe out. So this inhalation and exhalation, this together it is known as respiration. So how this inhalation and exhalation takes place? Generally we cannot see the lungs, but we can feel the power of the action of the lungs. See like this, during the inhalation, so the volume of the lungs or thoracic cavity increases, whereas again goes back. So like this, the power of the lungs we can understand by taking the inhalation and exhalation, but directly we cannot see them. But how these lungs are contracting and expanding in their size? What is the secret behind of the contraction and relaxation of these lungs? Here two most important things are to be remembered. Generally, lungs by themselves, they cannot contract and relax. They do not have the ability. Lungs, they do not have the ability, or they cannot contract by themselves or relax by themselves. But there are some internal structures which help the lungs to contract and relax. So what type of internal structures are helping to contraction and relaxation of the lungs? That we are going to see. Let us see. So here, the most important parts for the contraction and relaxation of the lungs is, first one is the chest wall. Here we can see the chest wall muscle. See here, this is the lungs structure. This is the lungs structure, trachea which travels through the neck and divides as a two parts, that is bronchi which divides as bronchioles, then bronchioles which enters into the alveoli of the lungs. So this already we studied in the last class. Then here, these two lungs are present in our body on either side, okay, left side and right side. So these lungs, how they contract and relax? For the contraction and relaxation of the lungs here, first one is chest wall muscles are useful. Whereas the another important one is diaphragm muscle also useful. This is one muscle. This is one muscle. Two different muscles are useful for the contraction and relaxation of the respiration. First one, let us see chest wall muscles. So this chest wall muscle is made up of, okay, the chest wall muscle is made up of with ribs and muscle and skin. These three parts that we can observe in the chest wall muscle. The chest wall muscle consists of ribs. See here, we can see the rib bones. So this is the rib bones. The lungs are surrounded by the rib bones. So these ribs are surrounded by the lungs. Generally ribs anteriorly, the anterior part of the ribs are connected to the sternum. See, anteriorly ribs are connected to the sternum. So this part is sternum. Whereas these ribs posteriorly, they are connected to the vertebral column. See here, vertebral column. So ribs are generally they surrounded by the lungs. Anteriorly they are connected to the sternum, whereas posteriorly they are connected to the vertebral column, just it appears like a rib cage. It is appear like a rib cage. So this is the first thing. So these rib bones are covered by the chest wall muscles, and also above the chest wall muscles there is also skin. So this is all about what chest wall muscle. And another important thing, one more is there, diaphragm muscle, the inflated flexible inflated muscle. The another one is flexible inflated muscle, that is called diaphragm. So this diaphragm is a flexible inflated muscle. Why we are calling it is just flexible inflated muscle? Because it can contract, it can becomes the flat in shape, and also it becomes dome shaped. So this gives the two important structures. Sometimes it becomes the flat shape, and sometimes it becomes like a dome shaped. So this diaphragm also one of the most important muscular structure, which helps in inhalation and exhalation of the respiration. And generally diaphragm which divides the here thoracic cavity and abdominal cavity. We can see here diaphragm, here the diaphragm can divide thoracic cavity. So this is, here is the thoracic cavity, and here is the abdominal cavity. See, here we have the thoracic cavity. Then next, below this abdominal cavity. So this abdominal cavity and thoracic cavity both are separated by diaphragm. So diaphragm separates thoracic cavity and abdominal cavity. So this diaphragm also which helps in the inhalation and exhalation. So here majorly two things we studied. The chest wall muscle is made up of with ribs, muscle, skin, which helps in the inhalation and exhalation. Whereas diaphragm also which separates the thoracic cavity and abdominal cavity. These two places can be separated by the diaphragm. This also helps in the mechanism of respiration. Then let us see how this mechanism of respiration occurs. Okay, the first one we shall start with the inhalation, right? So the first process is inhalation. So inhalation, how does it take place? In inhalation, what type of changes can be occurred? In inhalation, generally, see here, first this chest wall muscle and diaphragm muscles, these two can contract. First, chest wall muscles. The chest wall muscles are lined in the between of these ribs. Suppose example, see here, these are the ribs which are surrounded by the lungs. Okay, this is the rib cage which is surrounded by the lungs. In between these ribs, see here, there is some muscles. There is some muscles. These muscles are called external intercostal muscles. External intercostal muscles. See, the ribs in between the ribs, here there is a one type of muscle is called external intercostal muscles. So these external intercostal muscles contract at the same time, whereas diaphragm is connected to the phrenic muscles. See here, phrenic muscles. So the diaphragm is connected to the phrenic muscles, whereas in between the ribs there is external intercostal muscles. So these two muscles contract. See here, suppose example, when we stand here in the relaxation position, the muscles are in enlarged position. But whenever we breathe air, see, the muscles are contracted. Again, muscles are relaxed. So like this, before the inhalation, external intercostal muscles contract, so that when the external intercostal muscles contract, here the rib cage goes up. So that sternum and rib cage goes up. See, the external intercostal muscles, when they contract, so the rib cage goes up, moves up. When the rib cage moves, automatically the sternum also, above this there is sternum also moves up. So the external intercostal muscles contracting, that gives the space for the increasing thoracic cavity. This gives the space for increasing the thoracic cavity. See here, the rib cage is increased, the size is increased. it goes up. When the rib cage goes up due to the contraction of external intercostal muscles, here the rib cage and sternum goes up, so that here the space, the thoracic cavity space is increased. When the thoracic cavity space is increased, automatically the volume of the lungs also can increase. When volume of the lungs increase, the air pressure inside the lungs decrease. Suppose when the lungs before the contraction, see, lungs before the contraction, here the air pressure is very intacted with each other, air molecules are very intacted with each other. But whenever the thoracic cavity increases, which gives the space, so in that space the lungs volume also can increase. When the volume of the lungs increases, the air molecules they move afar, so that air pressure inside the lungs decrease. When air pressure inside the lungs decrease compared with the atmospheric air pressure, this air pressure compared with atmospheric air pressure, generally in the lungs there is lower air pressure, that means the negative pressure is created. To fill this negative pressure, automatically from the atmosphere, air rushes from the atmosphere to inside the body or into the lungs. So this is all about what? Inhalation. So during the inhalation, what changes we can see? Very most important. During the inhalation, the external intercostal muscles contract, and also the phrenic muscles which are connected to the diaphragm also contract. So that here diaphragm becomes flat. ఇక్కడ diaphragm అనేది ఇలా ఉన్న diaphragm కాస్త ఇలా flat shape లాగా అయిపోతుంది. So the diaphragm becomes flat. When the diaphragm becomes flat, automatically here the rib cage goes up, the rib cage moves up, the sternum moves up. When the diaphragm contracts, that becomes straight, the rib cage moves up. When the rib cage moves up, the thoracic cavity size increases, space increases, so the volume of the lungs increases, so air pressure inside the lungs decreases, negative pressure can be created. To fill this negative pressure, automatically air rushes from the outside to inside. So these are the most important changes that we can observe in the inhalation. Let us write inhalation changes in external intercostal muscles, phrenic muscles contract. External and external intercostal muscles and phrenic muscles contract. When external intercostal muscles contracted, what happens? The rib cage moves up. Whereas phrenic muscles contracted, here the diaphragm becomes flat. When the diaphragm becomes flat, automatically rib cage moves up. So this diaphragm diaphragm becomes flat. When the diaphragm becomes flat, automatically the rib cage moves up. It sends the rib cage upside, so that volume of the lungs, volume of the thoracic cavity increased. So these two things can increase these two things can create more space in thoracic cavity. When thoracic cavity or chest cavity increased, then volume of the lungs increases. Volume of the lungs increase. When volume of the lungs increase, air pressure inside the lungs decrease. Air pressure inside the lungs decreases. When air pressure inside the lungs decreases compared with atmospheric air pressure, that means negative pressure is created inside the air. So air rushes from the outside to inside. So air rushes from outside to inside. So in the process of diffusion, generally in the diffusion we study the movement of molecules from higher concentration to lower concentration. Here when the air pressure inside the lungs decreases, volume of the lungs when it is increased, automatically air pressure inside the lungs decreases, so that and in the process of diffusion in the atmosphere there is atmospheric pressure is air pressure is more, so automatically this air pressure moves from higher pressure to lower pressure in the process of diffusion, so automatically air rushes from the outside to inside the body. So this is all about what inhalation. In the inhalation, these type of changes can be made. Very most important. If you understand the inhalation, automatically we can write the exhalation. In inhalation, external intercostal muscles contract and phrenic muscles connected to the diaphragm contact. So the diaphragm becomes flat, so that ribcage goes up. When the ribcage goes up, the thoracic cavity's size increases, space increases. In this space, the volume of the lungs increased, air pressure inside the lungs decreased compared with atmospheric air pressure. So air rushes from outside to inside. So this opposite we have to write in the exhalation process. This is all about the inhalation. In the exhalation, see, in exhalation, let us see exhalation. In exhalation, what type of changes? Just opposite we shall write in, enough to write opposite. The external intercostal muscles can relax. See, external intercostal muscles are contracted. Exhalation. Again, external intercostal muscles are relaxed. Or internal intercostal muscles are contracted. We can write anyone. Either relaxation of external intercostal muscles or contraction of internal intercostal muscles. Okay. Either you can write just enough to write during the exhalation, external intercostal muscles are relaxed and the phrenic muscles are what? Relaxed. Okay. When the phrenic muscles are relaxed, again the diaphragm becomes dome shaped. ఇప్పటిదాకా ఇంతకుముందు ఎగ్జాలేషన్లో ఇట్లా స్ట్రైట్గా ఉన్నప్పుడు రిబ్ కేజ్ని పైకి తన్నేసింది. కానీ when diaphragm becomes dome shaped, again the sternum and rib cage comes to its original position. So the thoracic cavity space reduced again, so that volume of the lungs also decrease. When volume of the lungs decrease, air pressure inside the lungs increase compared with atmospheric air pressure. So that automatically air rushes from the inside to outside. This is what about exhalation. Very easy. In exhalation, relaxation of external intercostal muscles or contraction of internal intercostal muscles, and also relaxation of phrenic muscles. When phrenic muscles are relaxed, the diaphragm becomes dome shaped. So the diaphragm becomes dome shaped. When diaphragm becomes dome shaped, the thoracic cavity space decreases. Next, thoracic cavity space decreased. When thoracic cavity space decreased, the volume of the lungs decreased. When volume of the lungs decreased, air pressure inside the lungs increased compared with atmospheric air pressure. So air rushes from the lungs to outside. So this is all about exhalation, inhalation and exhalation. And one more most important thing here we shall remember during this mechanism of respiration. In man and woman, there is different things are there. In man, diaphragm placing the major role in mechanism of respiration. In woman, ribs are placing major role in mechanism of respiration. This is also very most important. In most of the times he asked this question only in the examination. So in the mechanism of respiration, in man, the major role is by the diaphragm. Diaphragm placing the major role in man mechanism of respiration. In woman, what? Ribs placing the major role. So this is all about mechanism of respiration. And one more small topic we shall see, that is about the structure of the lungs. See, structure of the lungs, if we can see, generally lungs are respiratory organs. Okay, We studied that lungs are the respiratory organs. They are spongy in nature. Some characters, if we can observe, there is pair of lungs in our body. Okay, lungs are spongy in nature. Okay, lungs are respiratory organs. Lungs are designed to take only gases but not for liquids and solids. Remember, very most important points. The lungs are designed to take only gases but not to take but not to receive the liquids and solids. They are spongy in nature. Okay, the lungs are spongy in nature, and we have two lungs, the right side lung and left side lung. See here, the left side lung is smaller than right side lung. Why the left side lung is smaller? Because the left side lung which gives the space for the accommodation of heart. So that's why here there is only two chambers in the left side lung, but in the right side lung here we can see three chambers. Right side lung has three chambers, whereas left side lung has only two chambers, because left side lung which gives the space for the accommodation of the heart. And one more important thing, the space in between these two lungs, see here, the space in between these two lungs is called mediastinum. The space in between these two lungs is called mediastinum. In this place heart is located. So the heart is located in between the two lungs. The space in between these two lungs, this space is called mediastinum. In the mediastinum the heart is located. So that we can see how the heart is protected. The heart is protected by the two lungs. Even these two lungs are surrounded by the ribs. The ribs are covered with the chest wall muscles, skin, etc. So like this, there is a great protection which is surrounded by the heart. So that is about. And lungs are surrounded by a two-layer membrane is called pleura. See here, we can also see lungs are surrounded by a two-layered membrane is called pleura. It is a one of the pleura. It is a two-layer membrane. This pleura is arised from the mesodermis. The dentin arises from the mesodermis, whereas pleura is also arised from the mesodermis. So the two-layer membrane which is surrounded by the lungs is called pleura. This pleura consists of a fluid is called pleuratic fluid. Okay, pleuratic fluid. This pleuratic fluid protects the lungs from the damage or from the mechanical shocks. Very important. Which of these membrane is surrounded by the lungs? He will ask the question. So that is pleura. The fluid present in the pleura is pleuratic fluid or pulmonary fluid. We can also say that it is a pulmonary fluid which is present in the pleuratic membrane that protects the lungs from the damage or from physical and mechanical shocks. So that is the most important thing. And lungs inside here we can see there are several small chambers. There are several small chambers present inside the lungs. Each chamber is known as alveoli. So alveoli is plural, alveolus singular. See here, alveoli is plural, whereas alveolus singular. So in the next class we shall study alveolus structure. Then here alveoli is plural, alveolus is singular. Then how many alveoli is present in each lung? Approximately 300 to 500 millions. Approximately these alveoli are 300 to 500 millions of alveoli is present in each lung. Each alveoli are the several small chamber present in the lungs is called alveoli. This alveoli is called structural and functional unit of the lung. That means the structure of the lung or functioning of the lung is because of only alveoli. If there is no alveoli, no formation of structure of lung, no functioning of the lung. So that's why alveoli is called as structural and functional unit of the lungs. Suppose if this alveoli is taken out and if it is spreaded on the ground, it is approximately 160 meter square. It is area. The area is equal to the 160 meter square. ఇట్ ఈస్ అప్రాక్సిమేట్లీ 160 మీటర్ స్క్వేర్. ఇలా ఆల్వియోలై ఉంది కదా, ఈ ఆల్వియోలై ఛాంబర్స్ అన్నిటిని బయటికి తీసి ఒకవేళ భూమి మీద పరిస్తే దట్ ఈజ్ ఈక్వల్ టు ఏ టెన్నిస్ కోర్ట్. ఇది ఒకవేళ మనం బయట పరిస్థితినంట ఒక టెన్నిస్ కోర్ట్ యొక్క ఏరియా ఎంత ఉంటుందో అంత ఏరియా స్ప్రెడ్ అవుతుందంట. సో దట్ ఈస్ అబౌట్ వాట్ the area of the alveoli if it is spreaded on the ground, 160 meters square. That is also very most important, we should remember for the competitive exam purpose. So this is all about the structure of the lungs. Okay, for more information please do subscribe and follow the previous classes so that you can understand more. In the next class we shall study how alveolus, the structure of alveolus, how gases exchange takes place in the lungs level, that we will study. So till that time, have a nice day. Thank you. Do subscribe.